So thank you for joining us, Kara. Can you start off by telling us about your company?
Yes. So we have two names just to confuse everyone. So I'm gonna start with the one that we're moving towards. So we're moving towards a lead coverage, but if you go to leadcoverage.com, you'll find it. We're also Smith Brown Marketing. But I started Smith Brown Marketing in my house in my pajamas with two babies under two. And I think I had a moment of like momhood when I named it. Just like, what's the easiest thing to slam together? My maiden name and last name. So Lead Coverage is a B2B lead gen only shop. So we do B2B lead gen for supply chain, heavy industrial, and technology. We're also a HubSpot Platinum partner. So we do HubSpot CRM integration. Technically, we're tech agnostic, so we can handle Salesforce, Marketo, Pardot, et cetera, but we really like the HubSpot platform the best. And we focus on lead gen, so we don't do a ton of creative. So we stay away from color theory, it's not my jam, and spend a lot of time on math. So we do things like webinars, CRM management, cold calling, cold emailing, warm emailing, finding the buying signal inside an org, and then delivering that to a sales rep.
So let's go back a little bit. Can you tell me about your career and kind of how you got started as a marketer?
Yeah, I got down to a couple minutes. So in 2006, way back, taking you back, I was one of the first 15 employees at a company called Echo Global Logistics. Very sexy. All the trucks.
Sounds like it.
Very sexy. We were one of the first tech-enabled freight brokers. That company grew 3,000% in 3 years, and my name is on their IPO press release. So
wow.
Great place, right time. I had a lot of hustle. They asked me to help them literally get the IPO rolling for the internal comms and the investor relations stuff. And I did. It was super great. At the same time, I got to send the first Groupon email, which is super random. But the guys that started Echo Global Logistics, Eric Lipkowski and Brad Keywell, also started Groupon, as well as a host of other companies. They are the quintessential serial entrepreneurs. Super good guys. So got to send the first Groupon email, did an IPO, ended up getting picked up by a company in Nashville to do another IPO for a supply chain management company. Instead of going public, they ended up getting in a little bit of trouble. So I called my husband and I said, hey, all my bosses just got fired. What do you want to do next? And he was like,
what?
Let's go make some babies. Yeah, it's a super fun story. It's like really specific to supply chain, but it's true. Like everybody sort of got fired on the same day. So he's a nuclear engineer and a fitness model. Hold for applause.
Okay.
He's amazing. He was like, let's just go home and make some babies. And I was like, all right. So I moved back to Chicago, popped out some kids, started sending emails for friends, which is really how the business started.
Mm-hmm.
Moved to Atlanta for a full-time job. When we exited that job, it was like, what's next? And had fallen in love with this city. And I just didn't want to leave. So we bought a house and a boat. My husband got a really good gig and we stayed. And I ended up meeting some really good people that said to me, hey, we need some top talent to stay here in Atlanta. If you stay, I will help connect you to some work. So we closed about $500K in work in, 3 months or so.
Wow.
And then someone told me the stat at the same time that I met Bernie Dixon of Launchpad 2X, and I got introduced to EO, the entrepreneur organization. They said less than 2% of female founders will break $1 million in revenue. And I was like, well, I can do that.
Right?
Right? Hold my beer.
No biggie.
Yeah, so we did it. So it took us about, between 10 and 18 months to get it done. We got it done with an all-female team, and it's been a rocket ship from there, and just loving it in Atlanta.
That's such an awesome journey. Wow. How did I not know your husband was a nuclear engineer and a fitness model?
I don't know.
I did not know that.
You and I know each other as business women, right?
That's
it's not on my business card, but it's true.
That's pretty cool, though.
He's awesome. And he's also like a really good dude. I like him a lot.
Beauty and brains. We always love that.
Huge fan.
Was there a person in the course of your career who really had an impact on you and just kind of encouraged you or inspired you to push further and to really just do the entrepreneurship route?
It's a good question. I mean, Eric, my husband, was a big one of them.
Okay.
When I exited my job here in Atlanta. I got 2 job offers, and they're both big job offers. And he said to me, you're happiest when you work for yourself. And the first year here in Atlanta was really hard, right? I didn't have a team yet. It was sort of figuring it out. I had a lot of revenue, but no humans to do the work. So I was working a million hours a week and trying to keep things sort of, I was actually finishing my MBA at the same time. It was crazy.
Oh, wow.
And he was willing to do the kid stuff, be dad when he could, like pitch in wherever. And he was really the one that was like, you need to do this and do this on your own. And he's still the one. So I don't know if you have this feeling, but yesterday we had a tough call with a client, and it actually had nothing to do with us, right?
Mm-hmm.
We were fine. And I texted him and I was like, it's over. I should pack it up and get a job. It's done, right? Like very dramatic, like Kara Brown fashion. And he writes back and he's like, okay, so this is the monthly like self-pity call. Okay, I can handle it. And he's the one that sort of like every time there's an issue or I feel like we're not going to make it, or holy cow, the month of April 2020, when I thought everything was coming down and all my hair fell out, he was there. Like he was the one that was there to sort of help pull it back together. So yeah, I think a good partner is super important.
Very important
for female entrepreneurs. Like having someone in your corner, and if you don't have a good partner, then good girl squad, right? So between Eric and the 3 or 4 groups of women that I have in my corner, I feel super supported.
That's awesome. That's super cool. So what's the most uncomfortable thing you've done to grow your business? Firing people?
Firing people, hiring them, realizing they're not a fit, and having to fire them immediately. It's one of the hardest things you'll ever have to do.
Yeah.
As an owner, as an entrepreneur. But I learned a couple things. The biggest thing I learned, and it sounds cheesy and I didn't believe it until I did it, is that we have a set of core values for the business. And there are 5 of them. I only remember 2. So that shows how.
There's that.
Yeah. So there's 5. I know there's 5. They're on the website, but 2 of them matter to me a lot. The first is yes and. And what that means is we never say no to a customer or to each other. The word no is demoralizing. It makes you feel gross. It's not a nice word. Like I say it to my children all the time. And when someone says no to you, it just feels gross. So we say things like, yes, Miss Customer Kelly. And we will talk about that in September when all the other priorities that you want us to do are complete, right? So the answer is always yes. And then we can talk about it later. So when I come in the office with a crazy idea, my team are like, yes. And we'll talk about that at the next retreat, right?
Correct.
So that's 1. 2 is you never throw someone else under the bus in my company. And it has kept drama to a minimum, and we're an almost all-female team. And we have very little drama, so that's a lot. It keeps drama to a minimum. It keeps your hiring honest. So I'll give you an example. We had a virtual assistant on the team. She was fine. She did an okay job. There was an issue with billing for like 2 or 3 months in a row. And so I called her and I said, hey, listen, issue with billing, it's not a big deal. Like I fix it. When I see it, I fix it. But if we could fix this all the time, it would just be helpful. And she said, that's not my fault. That's someone else's fault. That's her problem. And I said, wow. Cool. I'm going to call you back in 90 minutes. And I walked down the hallway and I said to the team, whatever you have on this person's plate, get it off in the next 90 minutes because she's out.
Wow.
We're clear with our expectations that you will take extreme ownership over anything that's on your plate. And if you try to throw someone else under the bus or make it uncomfortable for someone else to work at this company, you're out. And so I think the hardest thing that I've had to do is stay true to that.
Yeah.
Because everybody slips up. Everybody makes mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. And it's really hard to hold people accountable and to hold yourself accountable when it is you who makes the mistake. And then it's the balancing act between holding yourself accountable and not apologizing for everything, which is something that with women is a delicate balance, one that most of us don't get right all the time.
You know, it's funny you mentioned the apology thing. I've only met Bernie once And that stuck with me from that event. And it wasn't it was like a social thing over the holidays. And we were going around the room sharing something, and someone made the mistake of saying sorry. And Bernie was like, no. And the whole room was like, no. And I was like, okay.
So we take that very seriously
Yes.
at our company. So if
Yes.
you apologize or qualify your thoughts to our team, you have to stop what you're doing and say 3 nice things about yourself.
Wow.
And that makes people so uncomfortable.
They don't forget it.
Yeah, so they really stop apologizing, which makes all the people that work for me more confident. It makes them, more confident to each other, and then also to clients, right? Because if you get on the phone with a client and you say, I'm sorry, this may not be very smart, but the client's like, well, why would I listen to you?
Right.
It's important that all of our people, not just our leaders, feel super confident going to any meeting.
I've stopped doing the, hey, just following up on, the just and that whole thing, even via email. I'm very aware of it now more than ever. So
follow Mom Boss CEO.
No.
Okay, so Sunera is amazing. I will not butcher her last name out of respect. She's amazing. She's the CEO of Fat Merchant. She's become a dear friend. She's running a podcast called the 2% Club, and it's for all the women that crack the 2% ceiling. Long story short, she has a fantastic she's a very active on social media, and one of her Instagram stories talks about how to change your language from do you have time for me to this is when I'm available, right? And like the passive voice versus the active voice. It's terrific. If you can find it, it's an awesome resource.
I will definitely look that up, because I've just been making more of an effort to be more aware of that, and I think it makes a difference. So I'll look for that podcast. What's the greatest success in your business, and what did you learn from it?
Oh my gosh, greatest success. So number 1 was breaking the $1 million mark. That was huge. That was a big one for us. It was getting in the 2% club was really cool. I think the other one was I just celebrated 3 years with my first hire.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, how wonderful.
So Jenna Wessinger has worked for me for 3 years now.
That's a big deal.
It's a huge deal.
Wow.
Like our work relationship is longer than most of my romantic relationships before my husband, right?
Yeah.
And Liz Poinkowski, my other leader, has been 2.5 years. So knowing that these 2 women have my back, that we're a team, that we're a posse, that I've made massive mistakes, hired the wrong people, moved to the wrong location. We had a crazy office one time where the roof would leak on us and the walls would literally crumble.
Okay.
And they have been with me through the whole thing.
Wow.
And I think COVID and the 3 of us sort of banding together, how are we going to do this? And I remember feeling super alone and worried that the whole world was going to fall apart. And these 2 women kept that ship afloat, the company afloat, in terms of getting the work done.
Sure.
While I did nothing but filled out government loan paperwork for 4 weeks straight. I mean,
that's a job. I was just explaining to somebody that's a job. Yeah.
It was so bad. It was so nerve-wracking. I didn't know if I was doing it right. I ended up having to open 2 whole new bank accounts. I mean,
Jesus.
It was awful. It was, and we got it all, right? We did well at the end. But if I hadn't had 60 hours a week to focus on how to keep cash in the bank, we wouldn't have survived. And the only reason I had that time was because those 2 are such rock stars. So I think a long time ago, someone told me the CEO's job is to set strategy and keep cash in the bank. And I didn't really believe that. I was like, no way. I'm way more in the business. I'm doing biz dev. I'm doing client work. I'm still writing blog posts, right? I'm in the business. And I think in April, it made me realize I really actually could, if I needed to, which I did in April, walk away from the operations of this
step
business
back. Yeah.
And fix stuff. And it was sort of the first time I felt like a real CEO. There was cash in the bank and there was strategy set and everything else worked.
And things were happening. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's only because of those 2 women. So I think they're my proudest achievement.
And what would you say is your greatest failure? And what did you learn?
Oh my gosh. Which one?
The biggest one. Whatever you classify as the biggest one.
There's so many to choose from, Kelly. I think my biggest failure was not trusting myself super early on. So I made some pretty serious hire fouls super early on. Sort of right before I hired Jenna, right after I hired Jenna. Like we sort of were trying to figure out who was the right next fit on the team and what did they bring to the table and how much should we pay them. And I think those first couple of misfires in terms of hires were huge mistakes, and I continue to make them, which is funny. So my husband has a much better sense of character than I do. So I will meet someone and be like, this person's amazing, and he'll be like, this person is cheating on their spouse, and then it like turns out to be totally true. I don't know how he figures it out. He's clairvoyant.
I am your husband.
Are you that person?
I am. Gosh, I pick up on energy very, very like easily. Yeah.
I'm so dense. I don't see it. I mean, it's a blind spot. And so when someone likes me, I'm like, oh my God, you should come work for me. It'll be super fun. And then they start working for me and they don't do the work or there's a problem. And I'm like, but I don't get it. Like, I thought we were friends. Like, don't you want to do this? And they're like, no, I'm not doing that. And I was like, what? So I think I needed to learn the hard way that I don't belong hiring because my gut is off, and to trust other people. So I actually wrote a blog post just the other day about hiring in a pandemic and how hard it's been. And so we've always made people come and deliver a presentation to us because we needed to see how they would present in front of clients. And now it's even more important.
This is part of your hiring process.
Part of the hiring process. Coming in and presenting to us, and we don't steal their work. You can present on whatever you want. So we had one person come in and present on love languages, which was awesome.
Okay.
So whatever you want to present on is fine, but it just shows us, how do you show up? Are you prepared? Can you answer questions? How do you do under fire? In sort of it's a tough environment. There's 8 of us watching you. It's intense. And so we've been doing it on Zoom calls too, because I think the migration from an in-person environment to a digital environment doesn't work for everyone.
Right.
And right now, the skill set of being able to do what you and I are doing right now well is the most important criteria.
Correct.
I can teach you how to do lead gen. I can teach you how to write an email. I can teach you how to do SEO. I can teach you how to do PPC. I can't teach you how to show up to a call prepared, looking nice, right? Speaking into the actual camera and not over here somewhere in the whole time, right? Like, I can't teach you like the basics of like looking into a Zoom call. And so it's been really important for us to hire and make sure that's part of the hiring process.
And how have your clients been pivoting during COVID-19? Like, what's the strategy? How are things different?
So our clients are pretty much like, that's not true. So can I tell you about how we pivoted first?
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So we had a huge pivot 15 weeks ago. Kind of funny. So we started a whole new business.
Oh, there you go. No biggie.
Why not? NBD, right? Pandemic, start a new business. So my brother called and he said, hey, big sister, I got laid off. And I was like, oh my God, that's so weird. You sell fancy chin implants. I can't imagine why. He's like, all right, would you not with the sibling rivalry?
Please.
I'm like, cool. Well, like while you're looking for another gig, like, do you want to just like make some calls for us? Right. And he's like, yeah, sure. I can make some calls. He is slaying it. Like,
really?
Killing it for our clients. Just killing it.
That's awesome.
Great. Let's go hire some more people that got laid off from sales jobs. So we did. So we now have put almost 26 sales reps back to work, making the first call on behalf of our clients. So we've always done the lead gen. We've always said, we did this webinar, here are the 50 leads. We did this campaign, here are the 100 leads for your team to go follow up. And the biggest issue that we have, which is no different than the corporate team, is that the sales team doesn't follow up on what marketing gives them. This is not new. Now we're making the first call ourselves. And so we are so into the revenue cycle for our clients that it's given us a new perspective on their businesses. It's allowed us to come up with new strategies. We're learning new things about their customers because we're actually talking to their customers. So it's been a huge pivot for us. And so we're seeing our clients take what used to be sort of a trade show heavy, in-person heavy sales cycle and turn it into digital, which is really hard. And then the other thing we're seeing is a focus on pipeline instead of closed revenue. And so I think it's just obvious that, pipeline or closed revenue is going to be hard for the next,
sure,
1 to 12 months, depending on how things shake out. But someone will capture market share when we go back to work full time and everything's back to normal. And if you're not building pipe now, someone else will capture that work. And so our clients that are focused on building pipe now to convert later, I can't tell you that they're doing better, right? They're not doing better today necessarily, but I have more confidence in their ability to recover long term, and they have more confidence in themselves.
Well, that makes sense. They're positioning themselves to do better later because it's all a cycle, and so do you sit and do nothing? And then when it turns around, you start scrambling, trying to close things in 15 days that the other person has been working on for 3, 4, 5, 6 months. What are your odds there?
Well, and relationships, right?
Yeah.
You know it, Kelly. I mean, people buy things from people they like, that they trust, and they buy solutions to internal problems.
Yes.
So if I set up an internal problem for you that I can solve, and I stay with you through COVID, and we're talking, I don't know, once a month, every 2 weeks, and checking in to see how things are going, and suddenly you close that deal for, $10 million that you didn't think you were going to close, and you close it, who are you going to turn on whatever you have to turn on to make it work? The person that's been with you through COVID. So we've been making an effort, and we've been making an effort on behalf of our clients to keep them connected to the folks that will turn into closed deals as we start to recover.
That makes sense. That's awesome. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's fun. Can I tell you something else that's kind of cool?
Yes, please do.
So, all of your employees and all of your contractors, right? Like you hire them.
Sure.
I'm at the point now.
You're not even doing it.
Right? Like if there's ever a moment where you're like, oh my God, I'm such a boss, right? Like it's when someone says someone's name on working on an account and you're like, who's that? And they're like, oh yeah, you didn't meet this person. And I'm like, oh, cool. Do we pay them? They're like, yeah, we pay them. Cool. Great. Like, oh good, awesome. I'm glad you found someone to do that job and I didn't need to.
I didn't have to do it.
Yeah,
I didn't have to be responsible for anything, any of the big pieces that took place for this big thing to happen. Yes, yeah. That is awesome.
So all I had to do was set the strategy and keep the cash in the bank to pay this person. That was my whole job. And so I really do feel like this COVID thing has allowed me to feel like an actual CEO, which is, I guess, sad that I didn't feel like one before. But.
Well, I think too that, COVID has brought out a lot in people. It's forced certain people to step it up. I've seen people frozen in fear and uncertainty where they didn't try. I think for me, the thing is you keep trying. You cannot just fall apart. You can get mad, you can cuss, you can fuss, you can cry, you can yell, you can moan, but you got to try something. Your
hair can fall out.
Yeah. But you got to try something. You got to keep it moving. Otherwise you go under. And,
totally agree.
Yeah.
And I think, what does Albert Einstein say? Something about a body in motion, right? A body in motion stays in motion. And we never stopped. Like even in April when it was all about PPP loans and SBA and EDIL and who's doing what. And I was on banker conference calls like 5 hours a day trying to figure out what we were going to do. And my friends in EO were calling and our we women were like the volume of information that I was getting was overwhelming. And so I think being able, like, resilience is the word.
Absolutely.
Right. Those of us that have made it through this, that did what we needed to do, that are resilient through this, like, I want to give everybody a giant high five when we can see each other in person again.
Because there was no roadmap. It wasn't like, oh, hey, here's what you do when there's a pandemic. Like there was none of that. You were just winging it. You figure out something, you get a little piece of information, you follow that. Okay, that didn't work. Now we need to go down this road, start over, get some other help. That didn't turn out like I thought. But you have to keep going. I mean, it's funny to watch people, different groups on Facebook when this all happened. And certain people were like, I can't believe you guys are still trying to do business. And it's like, right, the head tilt.
Definitely still closing deals. Yeah. Yeah. Like I'm not going to stop.
Yeah. Still got to do business. And for us being digital, our clients stepped it up. They were like, we need to do, because they couldn't do anything else. And so then that required us to get more contractors, need other things to bring in. And so we were still running and people were like, I can't believe people are still sending sales emails. And I was like, well, everybody didn't just completely shut down. And you're still responsible as a business owner for people's salary. So if your business is needed or wanted, you still got to push. You can't just.
Yeah. Do you feel like, maybe you feel the same way I do. I noticed like the real entrepreneurs showed up.
Came out. Yeah. 1,000%.
Like I started an entirely new business.
1,000%.
Right? There are a couple of friends of mine that are like, if you're really a visionary, if you buckled down and you got this stuff done and you're going to be alive at the end of this, like bravo. But I think the other piece that surprised me a lot, and I didn't realize it at the time that I had been doing it, is that we had been preparing for a recession for a year in my business.
Okay.
So I started in 2017. It was, me, Jenna, and Liz sort of mucking around and trying to figure things out, got myself a bank account, but like the progression of the sophistication of the business. Mm-hmm. So I got a CPA and team in early 2017. So by the time COVID hit, he had been hammering on me to save money, save cash. So we had so much cash in the bank. I mean, like I'm not Delta, right? So it's not millions of dollars, but like enough that I could look my team in the eye and say, listen, if it all falls apart, you will be employed for X number of months.
Sure.
Right? So just stay with me, keep doing the work. I'll be super transparent about how things go. But because we had prepared in like a sophisticated fashion, I always knew where I was. And I think if I go back and I think about like things I did really well and like things I want to like pat myself on the back for, that's probably one of them. Because when you're in it, it's so easy to let the stuff the CPA tells you or the stuff your business coach tells you or the stuff your mentor tells you, like to put it on a shelf. Mm-hmm. I'll do that later, right? I'll change my chart of accounts next month. Mm-hmm. Or I'll make sure that I can cover my Amex bill next quarter. Or if I close this deal, I'll cover this payroll. Like that, like payroll to payroll, month to month anxiety. Once like we got out of that. You
got some runway.
Right?
Yeah.
Got some runway and like got some breathing room.
Yep.
That's really what allowed us. That's the impetus that allowed the team to run the business, that allowed me to go get the debt, that allowed us to grow and will allow us to sort of get ourselves through the pandemic.
That's amazing. But that speaks to true leadership. I think a lot of people get into business and they think being a good business owner is being good at whatever it is your business does. And that's not the totality of it. If you want something beyond maybe a lifestyle business, you're really trying to grow something, you've got to do the leadership thing. You've got to do the culture thing. We've had this conversation prior to things like culture. You're like, that's fluff talk. Like, let's just make sales. And it's like, no, exactly. Let's just close some deals. But that really definitely speaks to your leadership. Carrie, you're amazing.
Well, thank you so much. Oh my gosh, Kelly.
So last question, what advice do you have for aspiring marketers?
Yeah. So marketers specifically is math.
Yes.
Math. All the math. I talked to a woman yesterday.
All the math marketers.
All the math. Get the math. Like do the math. I talked to a woman yesterday. I joined Lunch Club. Super fun. It's lunchclub.io, I think. And if you want an invite, you let me know. But long story short, it connects you with other people that are not in your network. So like totally random connections. So I got hooked up with a woman. I had no connections with her on LinkedIn, which is pretty rare. And long story short, she is a young person looking for a job. And we're on the call, and she says, she wants to be a marketer. She wants to do creative. And she's like, I don't like math. And I was like, cool. Don't repeat that.
Ever. Out loud.
Pretend like you do. Like, you know, I don't know, get a boyfriend that's in finance, like figure it out. So I think math is the key these days in marketing, right? So the average marketing tech stack has 17 pieces of technology. Marketers are now technologists. We're super users, and we need to be mathematicians. So there are lots and lots of classes out there to be able to take math. I think what gets really sexy in math is if you start to get really good at the analysis and the math piece of the work, you can start to tell a story in math and numbers. And so even if you have a hiccup, right? So let's just say you have a series of 6 webinars, 3 of them, you knock them out of the park, 3 of them didn't do so well. When you really get good at it, you can tell a story that makes it look like you just knocked out of the park in general, right?
Yeah.
So that is a skill that we as a team are trying to help our teammates learn that skill, because it's definitely a more sophisticated skill. The basics are math, right? And then I think for marketers in general, it's don't be afraid of trying things and breaking things, right? So I'm on this marketing communications Facebook group channel thing, and a lot of times people get all worked up about like CAM spam laws or the look and feel of something. And I think one of the things that we talk about a lot is perfection is the enemy of progress. And if you think about marketing as just testing stuff all the time, then nothing's ever perfect.
Yep.
Right? You never have a perfect piece of content. You never have a perfect landing page. You have a best performing landing page, but I bet if you change 2 things, you could make it better. And I think that is a mentality that when we hire people, we look for that. We look for, it's not the perfect copy, but it's great. It's good copy, right? And the next time we're going to change it, maybe it'll be great copy, but perfect doesn't exist, right? And so just understanding that our job as marketers is to test and then deliver math. My last sort of piece of advice, what we've learned over the last 3 years, is if we deliver really great math to a client, we are super sticky. And so I think if you can so my last full-time job, I was VP of marketing, and I went to my first executive meeting and everyone had math but me. And I was like, oh, I have math. Like, dude.
Get on it.
I got to get on this. Like, even if it's just like visitors to the website, right? Like you have to know that. Yeah. Something. And I think a lot of marketers, especially like people that are content producers or PR folks or writers, like folks that sort of are in the more like soft space, if you will, it's hard to think about your soft skills as something that can be measured. But I promise you, as a leader myself and as a former executive, the math matters, right? So find a way to put some numbers around something because it'll help you stay sticky. It'll help you close more business. People like to see ROI, right? And I think there's not enough math in what we're delivering sort of as an industry as a whole.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time, Kara. I appreciate it.
Hey,
I think this was like super useful information for our audience. So I appreciate your time. And how can anyone that's viewing this get in touch with you or support the company in any way?
Sure. So we're at LeadCoverage.com, Kara, K-A-R-A, at LeadCoverage.com. A couple more plugs, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
So you and I met through the Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative. Huge fan. So I know there are cohorts happening right now, but if you are a woman thinking about doing that in the city of Atlanta, awesome opportunity. 2 is Launchpad 2X. I'm on the board of Launchpad 2X. So less than 2% of female founders will break $1 million in revenue. 25% of Launchpad graduates break $1 million in revenue. And then lastly is the Entrepreneur Organization. I'm a huge fan. If you've hit 250,000 in revenue, you can join the Entrepreneur Organization Accelerator Program. which hooks you up with other folks that are in your space, sort of your $250,000 to $1 million space, and gives you a coach from someone who has hit the $1 million or more to help guide you on your path to the 2%, sort of cracking that 2% mark. So huge fan of anything that helps other women on their journey. It's not a pie, so I will help. Like, come along, we'll put together, like you, right? Like, we'll do book clubs, we'll hang out. I'm happy to share resources, anything that I can do to help more women on the journey.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much, and I want you to have a wonderful day.
Thanks, you too, Kelly. Appreciate it.